Welcome back to CMS-Connected. It's time for the Vendor Spotlight, where today we will be reviewing SharePoint 2016. Now, last month, SharePoint unveiled a new cloud-first, mobile-first version at the Future of SharePoint event, which is allowing people, teams, and organizations to intelligently discover, share, and collaborate content from anywhere and on any device. Now, SharePoint plans to implement many new features for this calendar quarter and many more by the end of 2016. Now, here to tell us a little bit more about SharePoint 2016 and their latest innovation is Amy Martyn from Falcon-Software. Amy, how are you today?
I'm good, Tyler. How are you?
Hey, I'm filming at Fenway Park. I mean, I'm in my glory day right now. Do you really think there's anything better than this for someone like me right now?
No, you guys have so much fun. I am like so jealous. Every show you get to, last time you were at a distillery, this time you're at Fenway. What's next?
We've got a little something up our sleeves. Can't tell anyone just yet, but soon enough, I promise you. Anyways, let's talk about SharePoint right now. Of the latest SharePoint 2016 features which have been released and will be released, tell our viewers which ones stand out the most and why.
Yes, so there is so many features that have just been released with SharePoint 2016 that I wouldn't be able to go over all of them, not in a 10-minute segment. But the ones that are really standing out to me and the ones that are getting people really excited, of course, number one is the mobile vision that SharePoint came out with at the event. And really, this is now coming out with this new touch-friendly interface for mobile that people can access SharePoint from anywhere. People have been waiting for this for a long time, and it's finally out there now, so good job SharePoint. I think Scott touched on it in our last show that good for you SharePoint that you finally caught up, but I think people that really utilize SharePoint and use it on a daily basis are just so extremely happy about this. And also what people can do in the OneDrive for Business area is that they are now able to access sites and libraries, so really be able to really get access to everything SharePoint files. Another thing that has people talking, of course, is the hybrid capabilities, which is getting people really, really excited. So finally, people can now, work in SharePoint 2016 as well as Office 365 simultaneously. And I think people need to be aware, though, that this isn't really a true hybrid experience. The word hybrid is getting, thrown around so much these days and so easily. So people really need to know that it's not available just quite yet as a true hybrid experience. But what other people have really been waiting for is this whole hybrid cloud search. So really a unified search experience is now going to be available. So people can go through Office 365 and really access everything through on-premise SharePoint search index. But people need to also know that they can only do this through Office 365. Some of the infrastructure and performance enhancements that they've done, of course, is the zero downtime patching, so people are pumped about that. No need to take down server farms during your patches now, so that's exciting. Increased file size for upload, so before it was 2 gigs, now 10 gigs, which is, it's not huge, but it's also an enhancement there. And the fast site creation. So now this is a template put in place where with SharePoint 2016 that people can create site collections in 1 second rather than 40 seconds in SharePoint 2013. And since today we're talking about on the show digital governance, I really wanted to touch on the new capabilities that they've enhanced with their compliance center. So now people can create their own policies and apply those against their environment.
Now, Amy, which features have already begun to roll out?
Yeah, so good point. At the event, the Future of SharePoint event, which happened on May 4th, they did roll out a lot of things that were coming down the pipeline. But as of that day, they did say that SharePoint Server 2016, as well as Office Online Server, it was open to the general availability. And also effective was, of course, the mobile features. So everything for OneDrive for iPhone and iPad, seamlessly you can share and edit. Also the new Discover feature through web and Android. So people can now share collectively and edit and everything through their mobile devices, which is a big part, which I had mentioned, but also to minimize the search time, and also they're getting recommendations through Office Graph. Now on June 7th, they also announced the new modern document libraries, which is a big a thing that they just released and people are really excited about, which rolled out for Office 365 and commercial customers worldwide. Now, what I really like about this is the fact that it's offering a unified customer experience now through OneDrive Consumer, OneDrive for Business, and SharePoint document libraries. So very consistent user experience. They're offering also a new display for folders. They're also offering, you can access YouTube and put links and outside sources throughout these folders to keep them in your team sites. And they're also offering templates, so you don't have to start from square one with your Word documents and your PowerPoints. So that saves people a lot of time. But I think, the thing that people are really excited about, of course, is the fact that you can import files from other libraries. And this also became available for education customers as of June 21st. But the thing I think is really a game changer for SharePoint, and I really got an amazing quote from a fellow in New Zealand, and his name is Michael Sampson. He's a SharePoint activist, and he also believes that the game changer for SharePoint is really going to be within Office Graph. And it's already started, and it's really exciting that, the system, the machine, is becoming smarter than the individual, which is giving you highlights of things that you can work with your projects that's relevant and can complement your projects, offering those recommendations to you. So really this machine intelligence is really going to be a game changer, we believe, for that's within Office Graph, and that's using SharePoint 2016 and Office 365.
Now the biggest thing is what people are saying. I mean, you've seen some of the tweets. What are people saying right now about SharePoint 2016?
Of course, I know everyone wants to know, are people liking it, are they not liking it? But I think it's just too soon to say. It's only been out for a couple months. Nobody's saying I hate it, I love it. Everyone's just really trying to configure it, try to work with it. And that's what people are doing right now. They're really coming out with tutorials, they're coming out with how-tos, they're coming out with videos to help other people use it. But I did find a few things that people were having some configuration issues with SharePoint 2016, but I'm assuming that if you go online, you can get all that resolved. Also, I found some really fun posts from people that are just jacked about SharePoint, really big enthusiasts. And this one is from Thomas Shelby at King Chip. And his is got SQL training and SharePoint training in the past 2 weeks. Then I'm learning PowerShell over the summer. The dork in me is excited. Just love that. And another tweet that I found that was really funny, obviously not to him because he was quite frustrated, but I think people can really relate to this, is a fellow named by Baron Schaff at Baron Schaff. He points out #SharePoint, virtual analog to socks in the dryer. It's where your information goes to disappear for no apparent reason. Which I think a lot of people can relate to. But this morning, just a few hours ago, I had the pleasure of having a great conversation with Mr. David Maffei, which is the CRO from Akumina. I asked him some really detailed questions about SharePoint 2016, and here's what he had to say. So David, many people in the industry, including Scott Lewer, our co-host on CMS-Connected, really was referring to SharePoint 2016 event as it could have been called the catch-up of SharePoint rather than the future of SharePoint. What is your take?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think the reality of it is that it's a little bit of both. So you have inside of the SharePoint ecosystem a lot of organizations who have been longing for some of the technology that Microsoft is bringing to bear, almost more so in Office 365 than in SharePoint specifically in 2016. And so I think as you think about how these organizations will evolve their businesses over time and the functionality that they're using inside of SharePoint, the concept is going to be more about how can I get the most out of SharePoint to solve the specific needs that I have. And so I think in doing that, Microsoft has delivered a better framework with more features, with more functions that are solving more real use case needs. There are always going to be people out there that want SharePoint to really do a lot of things that it just doesn't do and really isn't intended to do. And those people will probably always be disappointed and wanting for it to catch up more. But for those SharePoint purists that are using the system to deliver the way it's supposed to deliver and the functions that it's supposed to have, I think they've seen this as a really big refresh and step forward for SharePoint.
So as Microsoft continues with SharePoint 2016, do you think a lot of people are really hopping on board, or are they really struggling to catch up?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think if you listen to Jeff Teeper, who's the corporate vice president of Microsoft in the SharePoint division, he says that there are over 1 million SharePoint developers at SharePoint customers. There's over 10 million SharePoint developers throughout the total ecosystem, and there are literally hundreds of thousands of customers. SharePoint itself is the single largest and most deployed commercial content management system in the world. In fact, it's even larger if I take all of the other commercial content management systems and put them together. The footprint is still not as wide as SharePoint. So when you talk about trying to catch up and upgrade, you're always going to have stragglers, especially probably in government entities or in really large legacy organizations who aren't going to be as fast to move. I really think that the big change that we're seeing in the industry today, and that's only going to accelerate over time, is not necessarily the shift from a legacy version of SharePoint to SharePoint 2016, but really from a legacy version of SharePoint to SharePoint Online inside of Office 365, so that they can tap into all of the other intelligence tools that Office 365 brings to bear, so that they can get more out of the data that sits inside of SharePoint.
So what do you think is going to happen with organizations similar to Akumina, who really live off the fact that SharePoint is quite complicated and you help with user experience? What is going to happen with these new SharePoint 2016 changes? Do you think it's really going to affect enterprises similar to yourself?
That's a good question. So we really view SharePoint as, and the other elements of Office 365 that we plug into, as the core plumbing of our system. If you look at a traditional web content management firm or enterprise content management firm, 80% of their effort in R&D is spent on trying to figure out the back-end database schema, trying to figure out search and governance, trying to figure out user management and workflows and synchronization technologies. And about 20% is focused on the user experience. When you look at companies like Akumina and some of our competitors, what we really focus on is 100% of our R&D goes into really delivering a much more usable framework to allow for the productivity of business users inside of organizations. So we let Microsoft focus on delivering that 80%, and we focus on delivering 100% of ours as UX. And by doing that, what we're ultimately saying is that as long as Microsoft continues to evolve SharePoint and mature SharePoint, we're getting better plumbing. And as long as I get better plumbing under the covers, it's just going to only enhance what I'm able to deliver to my customers to allow them to really engage their employees, drive revenue, and really push innovation.
So apparently, Amy, you must have thought we were having just a little too much fun with Fenway here, because I just saw a wardrobe change in the background, and you've got a little addition to that wardrobe. What's this about right here?
Yeah. Got to represent.
I love it. I love it. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. You got to represent your team. That's awesome. But anyways, let's keep talking about SharePoint. Keep that jersey and that hat on right now. You need to. All right, so what I have to ask you, Amy, is really what stands out to you from your conversation with David?
Yeah, so number one, I think that David made a really good point about there are going to be stragglers with SharePoint 2016. Not everyone is going to be, up to date right away, especially with government agencies that have to go through an approval process. And also the fact that he mentioned that, they're not threatened or worried, companies that are very similar to Akumina and Akumina, their company, they're not worried about these new features of SharePoint 2016. They're actually excited about them. They're going to leverage them and all Microsoft innovations to really help their customers and, bring even better user experience.
Awesome stuff, Amy. Thank you as always. Go Red Sox, right?
No way!
I love it. I love it.
Blue
Absolutely
Jays.
love it. All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back in just a few seconds with our CMS Insider.
So you've got a great website. Your marketing team spends hours driving visitors to it and nurturing them into leads. And your sales team spends hours collecting, qualifying, organizing, and chasing those leads. Sales wants to focus on what they do best, selling. And marketing wants to get on with what they do best, creating innovative campaigns. But how do you make both teams happy? The solution is marketing automation.